Backstage with Mothership on Solid Rock Radio begins now. Hear the best in new music, artist interviews, stories from the road, and more. You are now backstage, and here's your host, Mothership.
Hey, everybody. Longtime friend Trevor Tyson of Trevor Talks podcast joins me on Backstage with Mothership this week. We talk about mental health challenges, his brainchild, the Choose Life livestream event on Twitch with Heart Support, Love and Death, and Lacey Sturm, and we share our ministry goals. Let's just jump right in tonight. Trevor, How do we know each other?
Look, it started such a long time ago, and I can't remember the exact meeting spot. I don't even know. It's so long ago, but we've known each other for
some concert somewhere.
A decade. We probably met for the first time a little after maybe 2010, but where our story really picked up was when I brought Straya to the Avenue and Social Circle, and we did that event. We got to introduce them together. That was one of the first times I ever got to intro an artist.
Straya was the first band to stay at the house.
Yeah, we went to IHOP after and everything, but I was just a young kid, which I still am, but very much younger.
True.
I know that it was around middle school for me, and you took me to Winter Jam because my mom was like, I don't want to go to that. And I'm like, what do I do? And then Cindy's like, I'll take you. So that's where that picked up.
And I sounded just like that.
Yeah, you did. And we ended up volunteering for Red. And that was one of the beginning things where I got started in this whole walk, if we call it that, of I served for well over a decade before anything ever started turning into like a career, you know? So with starting that Red event and getting to volunteer, which if you remember, I was way too young. I was only 14 at the time, but the person who shall remain unnamed because they still work for Premiere made an exception, and I got to volunteer. We got to meet Red, which was super cool. And it was just one of those experiences like, oh, this is pretty fun. Handed me a bullhorn, like $5 CDs type thing. And we just served our butts off. And then took me to see August Burns Red at Center Stage in Atlanta. And all of that led into me just serving and serving and serving. And then I got connected with Nick Hall and Pulse Movement, Reset Movement at the time, and ended up traveling around the country with them, promoting the Together 2016 event, which was on the National Mall. And again, I was like 15, 16 when all that aspired, and on a tour with like Hillsong and Jesus Culture. It was Lauren Daigle was opening up. It was in 2015. So she's a huge star now, but like it was just super cool to be a part of that. It was called Outcry Tour, and got to travel the country. But then after doing that in 2016, my senior year, I started struggling with anxiety. And you remember, like, I deleted all my social media accounts, anything that I'd built, threw away, and started working at AT&T, became obsessed with my job, became the number one sales rep in the Southeast for the company, got sent to Cancun. Then I got made a manager at 19, had already purchased my first home, took a store from like the bottom 3 to number 1 in the company. And I wasn't happy. I was depressed. I was anxious. I hated life. And in 2018, God like really started to make it a point through several people in my life, starting with a girl I was dating at the time, that, hey, you should go to therapy. Like, you're not going to be happy. Like, you need to figure this out because you're letting anxiety eat you alive. And I was like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm not struggling with anxiety, you know. So I ended up going through therapy and like going to a psychiatrist, finding medication to work for me. And through therapy, Jesus, and a little bit of medication, I was able to like rise above everything. And I started making videos and putting them on Facebook and writing blogs. A festival out of California called Joshua Fest, Aaron with them reached out and was like, hey, dude, we love your videos. We'd love to have you come MC this festival. Mind you, 3 months before, I was like, oh, I'm never going to be able to do anything like I did, you know, like not even 3 months out of therapy, I was back on stage with Lecrae and Crowder and this crazy lineup. And it was like, well, God, and this is 2018, 2019. And I was like, okay, we did that. What next? And I was still working for AT&T, did a few events, but up until like September of 2019 is when I really started chasing this thing as a career and did my first tour with Lacey Sturm for her September run. And after that, hopped on with Mercy Me and Crowder, and then Mercy Me and Jeremy Camp. And then in the slap middle of that, the pandemic hit, and I was like, well, I'm getting paid through the rest of the tour, so I basically have 2 months of funding. I'm going to go home and start my podcast. And I already had the brand name Trevor Talks. It wasn't a show. It was like, oh, he writes blogs, but it's called Trevor Talks. So it didn't really make sense. I'd do lives and stuff and speaking. That made sense. But I started Trevor Talks podcast, and it kind of started doing its own thing, became my main thing. So I'll say like my ministry outlet. And it's really funny because the podcast was doing fine. But then when we added YouTube to the mix, it just kind of took off and did its own thing. Mm-hmm. It's been able to do more than I ever thought would be imaginable. And God's just put us on a journey. I don't know what the end goal is for it. I don't think there is one. It's just like I talk to real people about real topics, real stories. That's a whole catchphrase for it. And like we've been able to talk to some daggone cool people, a lot cooler than me, and share their stories and about like their upbringing, how they got to where they are, to show the human behind like the big superstars. But also we're all just human. Like this conversation right here is just as important as one you'll hear with John Cooper or any of these big stars. It doesn't matter what your status is. Like if God's given you a story and he's given you a platform, or even if you feel like your life is one that you want to end, that's not valid. Like God's given you a place, he's given you a purpose, and the main goal of everything is just to let people know that they're loved, to be encouraged, to stay up, and that everything's going to be okay. Like you don't have to be keeping up with the Joneses all the time. Just be yourself. Like love who you are, love who God's created you to be. And I hope that people walk away from even this interview with a little bit of encouragement to know like, oh, that little boondock kid from Social Circle, Georgia is able to do something pretty cool. So can I. And just be able to run with whatever they feel like God's laid on their heart, whether it's a podcast, Instagram Live, speaking for their youth group, drawing pictures, playing some music. It doesn't matter what it is. If you feel like God's calling you to do it, go out and do it. Like this is your call. If you've been waiting for a sign from God, here's your sign. But yeah, like just go do it.
That's awesome. Yep. You've come a long way calling me up and saying, hey, can you take me to ABR? Because my mom won't let me go by myself.
Yeah, we had to go. And that was the Christmas tour, too. So it was,
yes, we had to hear Carol of the Bells, right?
Oh, it was phenomenal.
It was. I remember people are like going, oh, she's so nice to take her son to see August Burns Red, like I was suffering in some way.
Yeah, it was like I basically dragged him here.
So, Trevor, tell me more about Fear is a Liar, your clothing company.
Yeah, so I started Fear is a Liar, I guess 2019. And it was literally just a way to express that the fear that you're experiencing is lying to you. People say my anxiety, my depression, it's not yours. Like if you claim it, you're taking it on as your own. And it's like, fear is a liar. Let's just nip it in the butt and move on. Like you don't have to live this way. And some people are like, you're being insensitive, this, that, and the other. Like I experience it on a daily basis. I know you have to overcome it daily to get through this stuff. And we're currently in the process of like restructuring it and bringing out some new designs and such. But it's really just an outreach ministry, if you will. I've been in airports and seen random people wearing it. And like I get texts every week. And like, I just saw somebody wearing one of your shirts. And it's like, oh, dang, like it's an outlet. We have a line within it called Stronger Than Your Symptoms. And it's like you're stronger than your anxiety. You're stronger than your depression. You're stronger than anything you could be experiencing right now. You're stronger than your symptoms. And it's got a thumbprint on it, basically saying like, hey, that's not your identity. You can be identified by your thumbprint. You can be identified by your eyes, your face. When you unlock your phone can identify you, but you can't be identified by your anxiety, by depression or anything like that. So just really encouraging people to go the next level. And we've done some videos with Nick Deddy from Wolves at the Gate, Lacey and Josh Sturm, and got a bunch of really cool ones coming up soon. And it's just really unique to be able to hop in on the clothing wear game. And we use Jereb and Josh Bramlett for all the designs and stuff like that.
Quiet Strength Design.
Quiet Strength Design. We use them for Transparent Media Company as well. They are some of the best in the game. Can't speak any higher of them than you already know. Like they're just all amazing guys. Shout out to the protests as well. They're amazing. They're some of the best, and they're working on some really big album covers right now that I can't talk about, but they are definitely expanding their horizons and their business is growing rapidly. So, which I got off topic from Fear is a Liar, but new merch coming soon. New website coming soon, and new content soon.
Okay, so is this a nonprofit?
It is not a nonprofit. It is LLC for profit. There are nonprofits in ministry, and there also needs to be businesses in ministry, but we donate way more than we take in. So I call it my expensive hobby because I don't take any revenue from it. We just give it away. So we've been able to partner with Heart Support, Beneath the Skin, Death to Life, and Anthem of Hope. just to name a few. It's a giving thing, you know, and during the pandemic, I was packing and shipping it out of my house and writing handwritten notes. But with touring, podcasting, running an agency, I can't do it anymore. So we're looking into different places that'll do our pack and shipping, and where we can be more consistent with the content and focus on the message that God's given us instead of getting it out, you know?
Yeah.
You're listening to Backstage with Mothership on Solid Rock Radio. This hour is being made possible by our business ministry partner, Anchor Bolt Express, the place for construction fasteners and a supporter of Christian music and this station. On the web at anchorboltexpress.com.
Well, we mentioned heart support, which also is close to my heart. I interviewed Dan Joe from Heart Support just a few weeks back.
Love that guy.
Isn't he wonderful?
He's the best.
But
he edited the whole Choose Life event. Fun fact.
Well, yeah, that's what I want to talk about. Tell us about the Choose Life event and the role you played in it.
Yeah, so I was working on the music video launch and the single launch for Let Me Love You, and I saw the music video, and I don't know for a fact if there's a campaign based around it or not, but I don't believe so. And I saw hashtag Choose Life at the end of it, and I just felt inspired to be like, you should do a campaign around it. So I got in touch with JR from Love and Death, and which is a huge friend of yours, I know for a fact. Dude, we should do something with this. Like, it started off as just being a hashtag campaign, and I just went in Canva and made like a little red bar that said hashtag Choose Life, and we were just going to run with that. But then it got a little deeper, and I ended up on the phone with the Love and Death crew and then Heart Support. Instead of just doing a hashtag campaign alone, let's think outside of the box. And I'm an ideas guy, like ideas sprout out from every which direction, whether it's campaigning, advocating, whatever it is. My brain moves a million miles a minute. So I was working closely with Mary Nickel, who handles all the PR for Transparent and does a ton for Trevor Talks. Shout out to her. She's amazing. She also is one of the co-founders of the Grizzly Awards and Rock.
Oh, really? I also am a co-founder of the Grizzly Awards.
Really? Didn't know that at all. But she helped piece this thing together, and we got to work with Dan and Dave and Taylor over at Heart Support, Head, and the whole Love and Death crew, Transparent, Zach Yoshioka over at Powerline Management, and really got to piece together an event that we're all super proud of. And it wasn't one entity involved in it. It wasn't just Transparent Media. It wasn't just Heart Support. It wasn't just Love and Death. It was a joint venture. Like, we all put skin in the game on this to really just rally around Lacey and Head for this suicide prevention message. And it turned into something really beautiful that I hope we can continue to revisit every year and make it better. And time will tell. Like having We Came as Romans and Lacey and Brian Head Welch, Relent, The Protest, all of these amazing acts come together. And Jake Lors from August Burns Red, obviously, like it was so phenomenal just to see all these voices coming together and to talk about one thing. And it's like, hey, choose life. Then being able to pull in people that aren't even in metal, like Clayton Jennings is an evangelist spoken word artist. And we were able to pull this thing off and see it come together. It was just cool to see so many different faces, so many familiar voices come together for one night to raise some awareness. Hey, suicide's never the answer. Choose life. We love you. There was a ton of like outspoken Christians on there, pulled the whosoever's in, Ryan Rees, and just got to talk about like suicide prevention, but we also got to talk about Jesus, which was a really cool thing with it being a secular event. Got a ton of press with Loudwire and Revolver. A ton of outlets just started picking it up. And I'm beyond proud of what God was able to piece together with all of us being small pieces of that puzzle, and just to raise money for a nonprofit. And as you saw, like watching it, the goal was $1,000, and within the 3-hour stream, they raised close to $5,000. So it was really cool to see all that come together. One of those events that you dream about, and even though it wasn't all concerts, hearing your favorite people come together, there's just something powerful about hearing a Brian Head Welch or a Lacey, etc., talk about like, hey, you matter, like you watching this right now, like not talking in any other context except for your life matters. I know that a lot of people found healing through it. So if anybody's listening, let's go follow Heart Support. They're the best.
Yes, they are.
It's one of those things that you'll never forget, you know?
And my boys Relent started it off, man. Yeah,
the Ghost performance, which was phenomenal. They kill it. Miggy, Relent, just in general, and the Rockfest dudes, they're phenomenal. And Relent just released one of the best albums I've heard. not even just in 2021. I think it's a career defining album that will be legendary. Hopefully it gets the recognition it deserves. I'm blown away. I will continue to support those guys, especially Miggy. Love that dude.
Yeah. Well, I just interviewed him.
Really?
It's my second time interviewing him.
Great. So after you guys listen to this, go to Instagram to Miggy Relent and put Trevor says hello and Cindy. He'll blow up his page.
Hashtag not an ad. Hashtag I'm with Mothership.
Yep, I'm with Mothership. There we go.
Okay, let's switch gears. You've added another iron to the fire. Founder, president of Transparent Media Company. How does that fit into your puzzle?
I have always been really passionate about launch strategy and social media marketing, digital marketing, everything to do with like piecing a brand together and launching it out to the world. And I worked for an agency for the longest time where we did just that. And I felt God calling me to start my own agency. And he's just really pulled together the right people at the right time to be a part of this. And like you said, putting another iron in the fire between Trevor Talks, Fear is a Liar. There's not a ton of hours in the day. So figuring out how to balance it all. And God's given me a really amazing team to be able to pull this stuff off. It's wild. We've been working with so many amazing bands. We've had the privilege of launching stuff with Lacey, Fireflight, The Letter Black, all the Rockfest people, all the way down to like Love and Death. And we just started working with John Schneider from the Dukes of Hazzard, played Bo Duke, and the Whosoevers. It's just insane. Like the projects that we're able to touch are just like, really? Like, in what world does any of this make sense? But I don't promote it on my socials as much because God's using us to help launch other people's stories. So all that to say, like, once you realize it's not all about public appearance and it's not all about the podcast or putting my name on everything, it's really about how can we use the gifts that God's given us to help glorify him through other people. And it's just amazing. I don't care about people's celebrity status. I don't care about any of that. Like, if God's moving in your life, how can we help you amplify your message? How can we help you improve your branding? How can we help you build your cover art or get your message out to the world, help you build your press release? And God's given us the right hands at the right time to really be able to do it. And again, just to go back to like the small town I grew up in, well, you would never expect, like, I remember being like, I'm going to be a speaker, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and people would laugh. And now, like, even hearing you say founder president of a media agency, like, it's one of those things. I always knew that God's called me to do something like this on all the different capacities. It was never like oh, am I going to be able to do it? It was like, it just takes time, and it's like a crock pot that God just keeps throwing different things in, and then you get stressed out, you crash and fall. Okay, I've had several times where I've almost went broke doing this whole thing, and God just makes everything happen, and being able to pull the right people in at the right time. And it's baffling. It's like if God's given you a mission in your heart and he's really pulling you towards it, like, hey, just go do it. Like, it's not going to make sense all the time. You're not always going to have the full support of everyone around you, but it doesn't matter. It's just like, if God called you to do it, or has he not? And if the answer is yes, do it. Like, God's got you covered. And it doesn't mean it's all going to be easy. It's not at all. But if you persevere through the hard seasons, if you learn that it's not going to be perfect all the time, and you own up when you make mistakes or underperform, you're just going to continue to grow. It's all a learning experience. So any kind of failure that you see or any kind of anxiety that you're experiencing, just learn and grow from it. And before you know it, you'll just be sitting here on an interview on Backstage with Mothership and be like, dang, like, it's weird coming out of my mouth. How did this happen? Our
stories are kind of similar, but mine's on a much smaller scale. You know, I tell people God opened the doors and I stumbled through them. I'm a nobody, but I've been given this platform so that I can promote people who are changing lives. So I'm going to use it.
Yeah. And it's never about like the size of the platform. And I know you're hard on it. It's never about that. It's like one person reached that's worth 10 years. It's worth 100 years. It's worth 1,000,000 years. It's worth spending $10,000 on a record to get done, or a single. I don't know how much that stuff costs. I'm just Trevor, whatever it is, whether it's movies or books or podcasting or social media, like whatever, like we'll come and support you in that way. But God can take the young buck from tiny town in Georgia and do something with him. So he sure as heck can do something with you. Like anybody listening to this, if you've been waiting for that nudge, just consider this it. Just surrounding yourself with people that love you and care for you. And it's never about the name affiliations. It's all about, like, is God using you in this place right now? Because he could put you with some of the most famous people in the world. And is this really what you're here for? Are you supposed to evangelize these people? Are you willing to risk your reputation with them to share the gospel with them? For me, the answer is yes, but it wasn't always. It was like, that's something I had to grow into and lean into my faith and become a whole lot more transparent and not putting up a smoke screen when it's convenient, so don't blend in, like be yourself, love who God's created you to be and pursue that. Everything else will come to you.
Yeah.
Backstage with Mothership returns after this. Check us out on Facebook at I'm with Mothership.
As you can see here on my mug, be kind.
Yeah.
I think that's something that's kind of lacking today. All the ministry things you're doing, you emphasize kindness, love, building up people, supporting people. I'm all for that part of your message. Fits right along with my message as well.
Why not be kind to people? And the only answers to that are either arrogance, you're having a bad day, and you just haven't learned that perspective yet. Like there's some days where we all have a bad day, but when it comes down to it, like even if you're having the suckiest day in the world, you can choose to see the good in it. And a lot of times, well, especially when it comes to mental health, and even speaking for myself, it's really hard to do that. But I try to push myself, even like if I'm going through a drive-through, to put my phone down and give full attention to the person I'm talking to, because you don't know if they just got fussed out for getting an order wrong or something along those lines. Like, just love on them. Just be there. Like, hey, how are you doing today? Not like, what's up? Genuinely invest your time and your energy into them. If you're going through a line at the grocery store and it's taking way too long, don't get short with them. It's not their fault. They're just doing their job. Like, choose to be kind. The people that I work with in business every day, even, I won't work with somebody unless I can see myself being family with them, like to the point where I'm here staying at my business partner's house with his beautiful family here in Nashville. And it's like such a beautiful spot to be. And I go down to my home in Georgia and be able to spend time with them, and go up to Pittsburgh and spend time with extended family. God's given us so much. God's going to surround you with people. It may not be convenient all the time to surround yourself with them. Invest in that. Like, take time out of your day, even when they tick you off or rub you the wrong way. Just choose to get over it and like realize we're all human. Forgive, forget. And that can be so hard to do, but like legit. Just like you were saying earlier, and like your mug says, be kind, like choose life, choose to love people. And we're all human. I've got so many friends that don't agree with me politically, but we just shut our mouth when it comes to that. Like, don't talk about it. They're very famous band members in bands that we all know and love that have different political beliefs. And I love at Uprise, one thing that Kevin Young says, like, we're a band, we love each other, but people on this stage like voted for different people politically, whether they're Republican, Democrat, Independent, whatever, like, but we choose to see past that for the common goal of just exalting the name of Jesus. And that really hit me. Like, just hearing that was refreshing. And one thing that I'm really striving for with transparent media within all our clients and projects we're working on is building community. And that's why you see some bands getting mega famous and some just declining in numbers. And it's like, if there's no community, like, this whole Christian bubble is going to pop, and there's not going to be any family friendly content. There's not going to be any content bringing the name of Jesus up. So like, even in Christian rock, just being like, hey, y'all should support one another, and you share about on your stories, like planning these little things, even within these artists, like, hey, just support one another, especially these new bands, like embedding it in their mind. Like, you're not going to get super famous overnight. People aren't going to know your name overnight. Start supporting these bands. Love one another. Know that Jesus loves you, so treat others the way that Jesus treats us. So why can't we look at each other with some grace?
I've noticed more and more how the rock and metal musicians that I deal with, this community in general, do rally around each other. They're mentoring each other. They're lending out band members during festivals or tours when someone's missing a drummer or a bass player. I love that about these guys.
Yeah, just seeing all these bands rally around each other, it makes you want to go to more shows, meet more people, and that's what grows the movement. So hopefully it just continues to accelerate, and your show continues to accelerate, as I know it already is. God's breaking barriers with all this content, and it's so meaningful to see people taking time out of their day to do radio shows, podcasts, writing a blog, etc. Even stuff within their own communities. Like, I'll get texts from you, hey, we should bring this person close, and I'll see what I can do. And just seeing the support makes me so happy. And what you're doing on a consistent basis, of a lot of people probably know, like, when they buy a t-shirt from the Mothership camp, like, that goes to buying food for these artists on the road. I've seen you time and time again, whether it's Red, Lacey, The Protest, all the way up to these astronomical bands. Like, you show up with banana pudding, chicken, just comfort food. When they're on the road, it's hard. Like having that breath of fresh air that you provide, you're not there to make money. Like you're there losing money. And hopefully like people like keep continuing to fund your mission and what you're doing, because it's so selfless and it's an act of a mother. Like you literally are out here walking as a mother to these bands. And even from a very young age, like JR, I remember when y'all first got connected, like he was 15 or 16 with 11 deaths, something like
15,
that.
15, yeah.
Yeah, 15. And seeing where he's at now, he had a lot of encouragement from you. Like that had to be huge for him. And I don't know the story specifically, but you've done this for bands time and time again. And it's really commendable. And I really appreciate what you're doing on your ministry and on your radio show and handing out stickers and t-shirts, masks, and all of the above. Like you go above and beyond, and seeing the way these artists treat you, it's not that they're doing it to be like, oh, just got to go say hey to Cindy. Like, no, they genuinely care about you because they know that you've got their back. You love them. You embrace them.
I do.
No matter what their differences ever could be. Like they know that Cindy Blankenship's going to be a breath of fresh air. So I enjoy seeing everything that you're doing. I enjoyed spending time with Dan out in front of the
rock stage at Uprise.
Yeah, where y'all had your seats and umbrella set up. I forgot what he was eating, but we had a good time sitting there watching somebody. And what God's doing in your life is phenomenal. And I'm excited to see your ministry growing and the show growing. And I think you're amazing.
Oh, thank you. You are amazing too. And I have been so proud of you for what you've done in just your few short years. There's just no telling where you're going to go, but God knows where you're going. So I'll pray for his continued blessing on your ministry.
Thank you so much for thinking of me. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening tonight. Stay tuned for more great music all night long. Be sure to check out my I'm With Mothership Facebook page and Solid Rock Radio's website. Follow the link under shows to Backstage with Mothership, which will have the links to my guests' social media accounts. This show will be replayed at 4 a.m. Eastern Time. Past interviews available on podcast.solidrockradio.org, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on Pandora platforms. And remember this week, be kind to one another.